A very good evening to you, wherever you are. Welcome to the program Beyond the Headlines. This is the 14th day of May, the year 2017, and the countdown to the August polls continues. Of course, we're expecting a lot, and a lot is happening in the country. And today's program, we want to focus on media, and especially the question of election reporting, and the dilemmas, some of the moral dilemmas and the professional dilemmas that we face as members of the Fourth Estate. My name is Martin Mwanje. I've got a two-member panel. In studio with me on my far right is Dr. Hezron Mugambi. He is a media expert, and of course, he lectures at the University of Nairobi. Doctor, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I also have James Ratemo, who is the head of communications, the Media Council of Kenya, MCK. Ratemo, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And very interesting discussion, by the way, considering that a few days ago, the Media Council of Kenya, where Ratemo works, asked politicians in the newsrooms to ensure that they quit. How possible that is, that's some of the issues that we'll be discussing, but not before I let you know how you can get in touch with us via our social media platforms. And in the studio with me is Jane Wamboi. And Jane, welcome to the program.
Welcome. Good morning, since you decided to start with the morning.
Happy Mother's Day. I think I was thinking about Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. And Happy Mother's Day to all our viewers as well.
What does it entail this day?
Celebrating mothers in everything that they do. They are mothers, nurses, chefs, everything. So we celebrate you for who you are.
Do you have Father's Day?
Wait for yours to come. A warm welcome once again to Beyond the Headlines. My name is Jane Wambui, and as mentioned by Martin, today we are still well in line with our talks on the elections, and today we will be focusing on the media. Now, the official campaigning period for the August 8th general elections will be kick-starting on the 28th of May, and during this period, the media takes on another very sensitive role. Now, the media has a responsibility to the citizen, to the candidates, and the nation as a whole when it comes to reporting. Also, the Media Council put in place rules that regulate how the media is supposed to be reporting during this period. And of course, we are asking you today, borrowing from past experiences, of course, can the Kenyan media really abide to the rules that have been put in place when it comes to reporting? Can the Kenyan media abide to the rules that have been put in place when it comes to reporting during the election period? Why don't you go ahead and share with us your views and opinions in regard to the topic? Our SMS line is 22162. Do leave a name and location. You can also go on to Twitter. The hashtag is BTHKBC. Our handle remains at KBC Channel 1, and on Facebook, our page is Beyond the Headlines. Our email address is also up for use. bth@kbc.co.ke is our address. We will be getting to your views and feedback as we proceed on with the show, but for now, the conversation begins. Mwanje, over to you.
Thank you, Jane, and let's now begin straight away by bringing in Ratemo, and we want to look at, of course, the media guidelines, the election coverage guidelines that we have. Those are the 2017 edition, those that media houses opt to follow as they cover this year's elections. And Ratemo, a few days ago, the Media Council of Kenya asked politicians in the newsrooms to quit. Does it mean you have politicians in the newsrooms?
What do you think yourself?
Let's begin there.
So that we constitutional right for everyone. It doesn't mean that journalists cannot run for political offices. And we have seen some who have expressed interest, and of course some were on ballot boxes. And the beautiful thing is that all of them who are vying, they left the media houses, the newsrooms, because the kind of work we do as journalists requires to be impartial. Not only to be impartial, but to be seen to be impartial. Now, can you imagine if you are vying, maybe, let's say, on NASA ticket or Jubilee, and you are still in the newsroom? You are a news editor, who is supposed to cover both political parties impartially, fairly, and let your audiences decide for themselves, especially when it comes to news. Then it doesn't make sense if you have declared that you have an interest to run for a political office and you remain in the newsroom. What the chairman of the Media Council, Mr. Charles Kericho, was saying is that it's not wrong, it's not illegal. But then once you have declared, please step out of the newsroom, go campaign, and if you win, fine. And if you want to come back maybe after, then it is a different engagement altogether. But you can't do the two things at the same time.
But you appreciate that, Dr. Mugambi, do you think there's a possibility, because the word he uses is declaration. So one will argue that perhaps those who have not declared then can do politics in the newsrooms, and perhaps that's what is happening.
Yeah, thank you first of all for having me. But I think the issue is that although that is likely to happen, because somebody can keep quiet because they're not running for political office,
yes,
but can still continue with political activity at the newsroom. However, as my friend here will tell you, every newsroom, media house has its own policies against which news production is supposed to happen. And I think the guidelines which Media Council has developed, which are going to apply in these, elections, mm-hmm, are supposed now to tame those kind of tendencies, so that the media house is responsible, first of all, to ensure that these guidelines are implemented. If, for example, such a person exists in the newsroom, then the editorial processes within and the administrative processes within are supposed to tame that kind of tendency, although I know later perhaps we will discuss whether the issue of implementing those guidelines will be an issue. But yes, that can happen. But again, no, because the media houses themselves are supposed to check to ensure that those processes are followed. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Very interesting, by the way. Ratemo, when you talk about, because one of the guidelines dictates that journalists are, do balanced and be fair in the way they cover, whatever they cover, in the line of their profession. But let's also appreciate the fact that we now have a situation where politicians are owners of these particular newsrooms. And therefore, if I'm working for a media house that belongs to a politician X, how do I be balanced and avoid, be fair and avoid being biased when my employer is running for the presidency, for example?
That is a dilemma that at the Media Council we have tried to tackle even in the past elections. Mm-hmm. Politicians have always owned media houses, or they have shares with media houses, because also the media is part of business. But when journalists go to school, go to universities, when Mugambi allows, dispatches a group of journalists to work in the media industry, mm-hmm, there are tenets that they are supposed to follow. They are supposed to be impartial, they are supposed to be objective. Okay, we have done our best to ensure that we talk to the station managers, to ensure that the politicians do not participate in the day-to-day running of the media houses. And of course, those who want to run their businesses, or the media house as a business, they accept that. But we understand that there are many interests. As we go to elections, politicians, they want to have a stake, they want to influence, because they know the media is powerful, they want to use it to influence opinion and maybe have an upper hand against their opponents. But as journalists, as editors, as those who are in charge, it will portray on you very negatively if you are swayed and if you come out openly to indicate that you support. And it is even more dangerous if you don't even declare, but you do it, in
a subtle way.
In a subtle way,
Yes.
And it's very wrong. And we have talked to station managers, and we are in agreement. 2 weeks ago, we were with all the media editors, mm-hmm, the editors from radio stations, newspapers, and TV stations. And we agreed that when it comes to elections, we have a stake, and we have to be fair, we have to be impartial. And so if politicians own the media houses, they should step aside and let us do your work. And if you think that you are being forced to do it, you can stand firm on your ground. Those are some of the kind of editors that we need. And we have seen editors standing firm and even reporting fairly and in a balanced way, despite politicians owning those media houses.
Dr. Mugambi, the question will be, because Ratemo talks about impartiality, but the very interesting question there will be, who's impartiality? And let me hypothesize, and then you have a meeting, for example, in Lunga Lunga. This is a political rally, and you have a politician who is in the race, perhaps wants to be parliamentary, wants to be member of parliament, or is vying for the presidency, and during that particular political rally, there are some ugly incidents that happen in that particular rally. Do you think we have reached a situation where, if Ratemo is the managing editor of that particular media station, he will say that my media owner, or the owner of this particular media house, was accosted during this particular rally, so I'm putting this as story number one in the interest of I want to let Kenyans know what happened, without necessarily going through those gatekeeping issues that we normally see in the media?
I think that is it is a very tricky situation, I want to say, because as he has explained, and practically, again, there's a big problem, because once somebody owns a media house or owns shares of whatever proportion within a media house, and then he employs editors, he employs reporters and all staff, naturally we expect that those editors, those staff, owe allegiance to him or to the company at least. But here again is a situation where they are supposed to be impartial in the sense in which they will report even about the company itself. That includes the scheduling of stories, giving importance to stories. And therefore here is the issue of impartiality and how you weigh the stories. So I think it's a very tricky situation, and I would rather, Martin, myself, that somebody declares so that they are supporting so and so, or team A and B, or this kind of political direction, rather than trying to pretend to be sitting in the middle, because that is impartiality. But while in the real sense, they are not impartial. They are actually, you can see when you read their newspaper, you can see when you go through the news items and you're watching television or listening to radio, you can see clearly there is some impartiality. So for me, it would be better to declare, and I will tell you, if you go to other countries, radio stations, TV stations, media, certain media just declares that we are actually supporting so and so, so that from the word go, people already know that they are consuming this kind of news from this station, and this is their orientation. But I don't want also to imagine that in Kenya we have reached that level where radio stations or media houses can so declare, looking at our own level of democratic processes and the level we have reached in our democracy.
What are the yardsticks that makes one think perhaps we have reached this level? Or what are the yardsticks that make you think we have not reached that level of taking a stand?
First of all, I mean, it is a whole democratic process. First of all, Martin, just look at our own political landscape and just come to think about ideals, because here is a situation where somebody can say, we support this party, or I support so and so because of A, B, C, D. Those are ideals the person will support because our party supports certain ideals, and a media station can support those ideals. Therefore, they converge. In our situation, I can tell you that we are yet to reach there, because even our own political parties, and you can see even through the party primaries we have gone through and the number of independent candidates we have, that tells you where we are in our political dispensation in terms of political growth and democracy. So that's why I'm saying, for now, our population, our masses, may not be able to understand that a certain media house will come out clearly and support a certain political party or movement because of A, B, C, D. In any case, we do not have, I believe personally, that we do not have those parties that have formed or have reached that level, that they stand over time and they can move from the next, for example, 50 years, where we know that they stand for these ideals, and therefore, if a station so declares, therefore it is supporting ideal A, B, C, and D, And people out there then will decide that since we support that, those kind of ideals, then we will also support. And those who do not will obviously not go that direction. But since we have not reached that level in our political history, in our political journey, I think it will be fair enough, as the Media Council and the media in general have agreed, to have some kind of guideline to guide our political discourse.
Ratemo, if we were following the recent US elections, and there's a journalist today who have written a book called Take a Stand, and if you are following the debates, Megyn Kelly, among others, the issue of, you could tell CNN is supporting Hillary Clinton, and you could tell Fox is supporting Donald Trump, among others. So it was obvious. Is the Media Council perhaps thinking of one of these fine days when we achieve the yardsticks that Dr. Mugambi says, then you let us, as members of the fourth estate, because Aristotle says we are political and social animals, so that we take those stands as well.
Yeah, that is a wonderful book, and I agree with it to a large extent. But so far, no media house has declared they are supporting either side,
But publicly.
Publicly,
But through the frames, you can tell.
Audiences are intelligent. People are intelligent. They can read between the lines. They can watch the way you are arranging your items, and they can know. So, but again, it's different from, you can do it in a subtle way, but if you come out and declare, there are consequences. And by history, we have examples of stations that tried to align themselves to one side. And even business-wise, they really suffered. And I can agree with Dr. Mugambi that we have not reached to that level. US, they can do that, and provided it's a party they are supporting their ideals and they come out clearly. But you have not seen a backlash in terms of all this because Fox now is supporting Trump. Maybe politicians or business people who are aligned to Clinton or to the Democrats now start pulling, business from Fox. There is a level of maturity that in terms of their democracy they have reached. And of course, we are heading there, So far, so good, we have come from far. And people now even journalists can criticize high-ranking politicians, and they get away with it. So we have come so far. Those days of one party, during the one party, there are things you cannot say about the head of state. So I want to say that the media, we have come a long way. And because we know that we have our unique experiences, that's why we had to come with the guidelines which are particular, which are unique for this country. And of course, these are the guidelines, they were there during the 2013 elections. And we just, do
you think
we modified to include issues like fake news, which was not there in 2013. But now it's there, and we wanted to give guidelines. These are guidelines for all the media houses came together, all the editors, other journalists, and other media stakeholders. They came together and decided that for these elections, let us follow A, B, C, and D so that we can have fair, credible results.
There are those who argue, Dr. Mugambi, that this, looking at the guidelines, they look so romantic, if I may use that term, ideally speaking. But in terms of implementation, even if it's media houses that, because I saw even as KBC, we have signed to this particular guidelines, implementing them is a different thing altogether.
Yes, we can say like everything else. I don't think, to all credit to the media houses, I don't think it is unique to the guidelines. I think all these things require a lot of, collective goodwill, because they are very good. They are very good, but as we have said in the discourse, implementing them will go so far as the people who are implementing them push or desire to implement them to the letter. Just take an example of the Constitution. The Constitution is very good. We have a very good Constitution, 2010. But you will find that bluntly, officers, be they private or, depending on their standing within our society, they will disregard it and they will get away. Sometimes they will not. So media then, therefore, here becomes very difficult because, again, media is everywhere and it includes things like social media. And social media is one of those very difficult animals, even to police, even to follow up. And these things are running. And we, Media Council, with all due respect, may not even have that kind of reach to follow up every day, like social media, and follow up, unless there is, of course, a complainant and all that, people follow up. But sometimes some of these things slip out of the fingers, and they're contravened, and really nothing happens. But I want to say that over and above, being or having them in the first place, Martin, is a very good thing. And I want to say that to a large extent, because of their being there, media houses, I have tried. They may not have reached that level of very good implementation in terms of 80% and very high percentages. But just the fact that they are there has made media houses and has even made politicians. And I've seen examples of the way nowadays politicians, in the electioneering period, they are talking about issues because they know these principles, this code exists. And therefore, they are trying to be within the context. They are trying not to inflame passions, trying not to divide people, to use propaganda, to use all that, which is why this guideline, I think, is an important step towards achieving what we want to achieve by using these guidelines.
Ratemo, before we go for that very quick break, there are those who argue, because we need to look at this thing from both sides of the coin, that one of the challenges that faces the implementation of these guidelines is the fact that perhaps the Media Council itself, its creation, its establishment, is a body that embodies people who have been picked to advance certain interests. And therefore, how do you, how do you implement the guidelines when the implementers, the people to be overseeing the implementation, have themselves vested interests?
I think of that. I don't think that at the Media Council, because the council is run by a board, we have a secretariat, and these people are recruited in a competitive way. And so, like the chairman of the council is the chief editor of the Star.
Yes.
Yeah, and so he's one of us. Yeah. And if you look at, we have committees, some of the members are from the media. The programs manager, Victor Buir, has been in the media. Myself, I've been in the media. Dr. Aaron Mwangi is a lecturer in media. And and again, we don't, that's why, like these guidelines, is not a creation of the Media Council. It's a creation of the media stakeholders as a whole. Media Council is just, took a leading role to bring them together. So that could be just a perception. But in reality, we are working as a team, and there's nobody pushing or a particular ideal or for a particular political party or anything. And again, remember, we have the Complaints Commission, which is also independent. And if there's any complaint from the public, from any media house, they can take it there and it can be adjudicated in an independent way. So we have tried in all ways possible to ensure that we are impartial ourselves, and we are guiding the media industry, as a group. Yeah.
So you're simply saying there are no politicians in the Media Council of Kenya?
As you know, and as much as I know, and Dr. Mwangi can say, there's no politician so far. Maybe they declare.
We'll take that quick break. When we come back, we continue with the discussion. We'll be looking at the question of opinion polls, especially how do media cover it, apart from just saying that President Uhuru Kenyatta has, how do we call it, is leading the pack with 70% and all those kind of things. Stay tuned to the program. This is Beyond the Headlines.
Kaluma Strong hutuliza maumivu ya kichwa, maumivu ya mwili na hata huondoa joto jingi mwilini. Kaluma Strong ina aspirin kama kiungo. Maumivu ya kizidi, muone daktari.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Last week, Lisa shared tips on how to write an engaging story. Today, she has something else up her sleeve.
5 to meet what it says How long has this been going on?
2 years? About 2 years. Your time is up. Please file your story.
The result of this examination and the score from the outdoor activities will determine which university teams stay and which ones will be sent home.
Okay, has everybody emailed me their story?
Yes. Top Story on KBC Channel 1.
Our show, let's celebrate Christ to the fullest. DJ
Welcome back to the program. If you're just joining us, this is Beyond the Headlines. We are talking about our media's preparedness in terms of election coverage and some of the guidelines they need to adhere to as they cover the polls. And then sitting with me is Dr. Hezron Mugambi, is a media expert and a lecturer of communication at the University of Nairobi. Notice the word they are there. And then James Ratemo, who is the head of communications at the Media Council of Kenya. But before we continue with the discussion, Jane Wamboi is here to let us know what people are saying on Twitter, Facebook, and other media platforms.
Thank you, Martin. Remember, we asked you a very simple question. Borrowing from past experience, can the Kenyan media really abide to the rules and regulations that have been put in place when it comes to election reporting? Hashtag BTHKBC at KBC Channel 1 is our handle on Twitter. Let me just sample some of your views. We have Alvin Karani saying, the media is powerful, so politicians would want to hijack them for self-gain. Therefore, reporters beware. 254 Digital saying journalists must also be allowed to question the opinion polls. We move on to Sir Gibson Mwangi saying our media should habitually become skeptical and fair when reporting. Amid the expectations of Kenyans, it should not be biased by any means. Fanon Thamo has a question. He asks, how do you ensure credible election reporting in the wake of social media propaganda? Of course, the whole question of social media has been brought up there. Frankie Rongo saying the media has a duty to be balanced and impartial in the election reporting and not to discriminate. Frank Mutoka saying the media have a right to be exempted from legal liability for unlawful statements by candidates. The whole question of if somebody says something unlawful in your show, will you be held accountable? All right, Josephine Omaida saying one guideline during this election period, support peaceful elections. We also have Kahohi John saying the Kenyan media is capable of impartial reporting. Those are just some of your views. Keep them coming in. Remember, hashtag BTHKBC at KBC Channel 1 is how you can find us on Twitter. Monje, maybe you could handle some of what you have, we have sampled on Twitter.
Thank you very much, Jen. Very interesting questions, by the way. Weighty, if you go through them, and that's why we are here, to bring you beyond the headlines. Dr. Mugambi, there's a question on how do we ensure credible polls in the wake of what others call the fifth estate, the internet, social media, all over. And then we are being told, media, these are the guidelines. But these things are all over the social media.
Thank you. As Martin has had indicated earlier, social media is a big problem. It's a big challenge actually to even communication itself, because the issue of control and how you guide the discussions and the use of that tool, as good as it is quite challenging. And that is where we even have the issues of fake news, because fake news travels faster through social media, so that by the end of the day, before the conventional media or the end of the hour reports on a certain issue, the fake news is already gone very fast. So I think the Media Council, in conjunction with the media generally, because it's just alternative media, will have to come. I know in the guidelines we have issues to do with social media, but I think we will need to think more as media stakeholders on how they use to guide the use of social media. And here I don't mean control, because I mean there's a difference between guiding and control, so that people don't feel like the freedom to use social media has been curtailed. But yes, I think it is a big challenge, as my brother Ratemo here will agree, it's a big challenge to monitor, to guide, and to help in our own, political processes and dispensation. But I think we have guidelines, and it is good because the mainstream media have also social media outlets, which they are also using to update on any happenings in the country, and that is also helping to counter what we have, the other social media platforms which are not emanating from the mainstream media. So that is helping actually, because even when something runs, you can always find something from the mainstream media or the recognized media, either disputing or clarifying an issue. But I want to say that we also need a lot of civic education. Our people, Kenyans, will need a lot of civic education on social media use, because you get calls, I get calls all the time because of a post which is somewhere on social media platforms about this has happened, very serious issues. And it's even good the mainstream media, like I've seen newspapers now coming up even to write about what was false in the social media a day before and what was not, so that at least that clarifies, so that, because finally it is going to affect the electioneering processes in one way or another.
One way or another.
Yeah.
Ratemo, you did indicate that one of the reasons why you revised the guidelines for election coverage for the media is because in 2013 we never had fake news. In 2017 we're now talking about fake news and social media and all those kind of things. What does the guidelines specifically dictate that the media shouldn't abide by?
Yeah, and maybe one thing I should mention is that currently training is going on across the country based on these guidelines. And we have trained the key editors in various media houses to even conduct in-house training, because the media council may not reach all the journalists across the country, but then we train a few trainers and then they go to the media houses. Yeah. The beautiful thing about these guidelines is that rarely will you see fake news in mainstream media, because now journalists have been, they are aware what fake news is, how to detect it, and they have been trained to ensure that they verify any information which appears on social media. Use whatever you see on social media as a tip, then verify. If it's talking about NASA, for instance, or maybe, let's say, maybe a particular candidate has stepped down or withdrawn, then, any other blogger, any other social media user who's not a trained journalist can retweet very fast, in a way endorse that particular news, and then it can appear as if it's real. But if you go to mainstream or social media handles of the media houses, or of journalists who are trained and accredited by the Media Council of Kenya, rarely will you see them retweeting what has not been verified. So the guideline really emphasizes on the need to verify any information on social media.
But in the age, at a time when we have a lot of this cutthroat competition in the media, at a time when, having that scoop is what makes you, improve your ratings, how do you do that?
That, is also handled by this guy. It says that you'd rather delay, but get it right. There is speed versus accuracy. Accuracy is king. You'd rather delay rather than get it wrong, because the damage, the reputation, you'll have maybe damaged your reputation. So the guidelines are very clear that as much as you want to be very fast and to be the first in breaking news, verify. The faster you verify, the better. So the thing is, you compete on verifying. Don't post, like in maybe security circles, you shoot or you do what you have been told, and then you ask questions later. No, in media, in fact, there are no excuses for getting it wrong. Right? Yeah. So you have to verify, and I'm telling all journalists, whenever we interact in all our trainings, even we have a code of ethics. Yeah, we have to verify. You have to get it right. Accuracy. You have to be true. If it's truthful, then say it. But before you verify yourself, don't even see, maybe another journalist who's not well grounded in this training may retweet, and you think this is a journalist maybe from a respected media house. As a journalist, don't retweet that before you verify yourself. And that's why now we have even gatekeeping processes in the media houses. We have maybe an online editor, then there is a social media moderator. So they are trained and they are aware that they have to ensure that whatever they post is verified. Because most of the time, when we see news, fake news around on social media, we tend to go to the mainstream to cross-check and verify. So it will be disheartening to see that whatever is fake is also appearing on mainstream.
I'm just trying to imagine in terms of implementing these guidelines, and we have, of course, journalists, quote unquote, who work with media houses, and they're not journalists per se, especially one like the station, for example. Are you also considering, did you consider them in terms of the training?
Yeah. For the guidelines, what our discourse with the editors is that whoever they have recruited to report these elections must go through this. Yeah, you may not be a journalist per se, but you know, we have seen even during elections, because the manpower, we want to have a lot of hands, you know, many hands helping, especially in the grassroots. These are the people, the basic you can do to these people is to take them through this and train, if possible, recruit trained journalists who have come from schools of journalism across the country. But if you cannot, ensure they have the basic tenets, they have the basic training on how to identify what is fake, what's truthful. Or if they go through this, the tenets of journalism, impartiality, accuracy, timeliness, then, and I'm sure they're not working in isolation. Whenever they send in reports, then we have now trained journalists, trained editors who sift through and keep to ensure that whatever goes through is real. Yeah.
Dr. Mugambi, as we talk about the whole question of election coverage, one of the most challenging issues to members of the fourth estate has been, because news is something that has been widely defined. And here's a situation where politician X goes to a political rally, makes one of obnoxious statements that you may think about a certain leader. And here is a media house where you are thinking, do I play this particular soundbite, for example, or do I not play? But then if I do not play, that's what Kenyans want to hear. So which way for the media house in this case? Do you play? Do you look at the, the question of public interest versus hate speech and all those kind of things?
I think my friend here has already given some indication of that question, in the sense in which, you see, as I said earlier again, the media house is the one to implement this. So much so that if you play that, again, you may end up being enjoined if there's a suit which comes, because you played it. Knowingly, of course, with these guidelines and, you know, with the training which we have given the journalists, that this is defamation, or this is, you know, propaganda, or this is likely to cause a breach of peace and all that. So in that case, I think the editors, the media houses take a greater role in ensuring that what they report from the field. Thank God, you didn't ask about live coverage, because again, live coverage becomes a problem.
It becomes another issue.
Yeah,
yes.
But in the instances where it is just a report which has come to the media house and you're looking at the clip and you're editing it, I think that part, which will be considered against the interest of the state, or, you know, harmony and peace and all that, will unfortunately have to be removed or re-edited in a way that it does not cause the breach of peace or cause disharmony or disunity and all that. What I'm saying is that the media houses here are very powerful, as one of the, you know, Karan said, it's very powerful. So because they are very powerful, and because they take what they see in the media houses as plain truth and 100%, it is incumbent upon editors and media houses to ensure that what is played out there, and I'm very happy that this is signed by all media houses, that what goes out to the public serves the public well, not to cause any issues which will arise from those kind of reports. But in the case of, I think, live coverage, I think we will then need the Media Council to train the reporters more, and especially if they are trainee reporters, because some instances, Ratemo, you'll find that there are trainee reporters who are in the field, especially like now in the electioneering period where you have so many areas to cover. So the kind of experiences you have may not be the same for all the reporters. So it becomes problematic to know when to remove the mic from somebody or a politician who is inflaming tensions or who is saying things which you think are against this or against the normal fabric of functioning of Kenya as a country. So I think media editors, the media houses have a role to play, and their role is so enormous, as big as the influence of the media is on society. In terms of saying that the public will want to consume those kind of statements, I think sometimes back, they were running to 1992 elections, and later after we had multi-party, I saw the media in Kenya taking a very proactive role in ensuring that what was reported was accurate, what was reported did not cause disharmony, and therefore the media can even try or insist on blacklisting certain politicians who they think are causing disharmony or are not doing their campaigns in public interest.
I asked that question, Ratemo, because I remember the case of Gatundu South MP, where he made a statement and then it was not carried in the mainstream media.
Yeah.
And therefore, social media comes, and that is a statement that is all over through the social media. And a day after, then the mainstream media is playing the same clip. So is it not a fallacy that the mainstream media will not play that clip, but then after some days, the social media will be all over, wash with all these kind of statements, and then we end up carrying the same?
According to the guidelines, media is allowed sometimes to carry such statements to the extent of, are taking a stand that such statements are not allowed, to expose such a person. In fact, it's the media which to a large extent helped in exposing even the Pangani 6, yeah? Because if blackout is good, but again, if you let them say in barazas, in rallies, and then you want to black out, but again, remember, so many people are watching, or they are there in that rally, and you find a politician emitting hate speech, and then you let them, because now our guidelines say that you should not repeat, you should not carry, you should not air the same. But again, it comes a time when you want to expose them, not in a way to glorify whatever they're saying, but again to castigate, and then even encourage the security agencies or the security arm to take action. So, but again, when it's carried, it's with much weight when it's through the mainstream media. So, to some extent, we have a role to, to expose, to name and shame.
To name and shame.
Yeah.
I think I was just saying that, to add on to what he's saying, I think then that material, first of all, as I say, first delaying it is fair enough, because you see, if it goes directly, it can cause unprecedented harm. Therefore, of course, other people who are concerned will get that clip and will know what to do. So by the time the mainstream media, for example, in that case, picks up, it is not for purposes of showing that this is good, but for purposes of, saying that this is not what we want and condemning it and all that. And therefore, people will again pick it. So I think that is a strategic way of looking at it, instead of just playing it and you let things run.
And maybe to tell Dr. Mugambi that in the media house, especially in radio, you have the delay technology.
Yes,
and
yes,
the guidelines say that every media house, especially if you are doing live talk shows, like what we are doing right now, then you should, especially for radio, you must have delay technology. And here you have to brief your guests that this is not the line to take. And if you find that someone is emitting hate speech, cut them off.
And so, I know that works very well, actually, especially in calling programs, where sometimes you find, the language being used is a bit, it's not very nice. So you delay it, and therefore it comes. Sometimes some of them give it, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just to ensure that what is being said, because it is live, the calling is okay.
So that becomes gatekeeping loaded, if you may want to call it.
Yeah, of course, they have a role. They have a role.
There's a lot of things, by the way, in the guidelines, and I want to believe one of these fine days we have to recall Dr. Mugambi and James to come, and so that we look at the question of corruption. That's an issue that we cannot finish today, and the whole question of opinion polls. Approval ratings, and who is leading the pack, and should we just run with those figures or as members of the fourth estate, we need to interrogate them. I should thank you, Dr. Ezra Magambi, our media expert here and a lecturer at the University of Nairobi, and James Ratemo, who is the head of communications at the Media Council of Kenya. Who knows, next week, and we may just call them so that we talk about corruption and then the question of opinion polls. My name is Martin Mwanje. We have to pave way for the Armenia Channel 1 that is coming up next, and I want now to cross over to Jen Wamboi to bring this to an end.
Thank you, Martin. That's all the time we had for today's discussion. Thank you very much for your time and your contributions. But remember, you can keep talking to us. Our communication platforms remain open. SMS line is 22162. Our handle on Twitter is at KBC Channel 1, #BTH, and on Facebook our page is Beyond the Headlines. My name is Jane Wamboi. Thank you very much once again. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Have a good night.